Yellowstone warning, population has been told nothing you can do in event of a super-eruption. Well, of course there's nothing we can do except try and evacuate. Yellowstone has captured the attention of scientists the world over. It's one of the world's 21 supervolcanoes. Now, they have suggested that those living in close proximity to the caldera would have no chance of escaping its grip in the event of a super-eruption. The Yellowstone supervolcano example of one of the world's so-called supervolcanoes, a volcano that has a volcanic explosivity index V8 of 8, the highest value in the index. It's not highly active. It has erupted, though, just 3 times in the last 3 million years. Researchers have long studied the great giant caldera in the Yellowstone National Park of Wyoming, and for the potential consequences of a contemporary eruption. The last came about 630,000 years ago, and that was 1,000 times bigger than the 1980 Mount St. Helens eruption, which caused more than $1 billion of damage. And that was a VI of 5. Now, such was the strength of the last event that a large volume of material caused the ground to collapse. In Yellowstone, this created the Great Depression known as the caldera, and it measures about 55 kilometers by 80 kilometers wide. The next eruption is predicted to have catastrophic global effects, with many of these outcomes explored during What's If short documentary. What if the Yellowstone volcano erupted tomorrow? The narrator noted, right now in the US, one of the world's largest volcanoes is gearing up to explode. If Yellowstone decided to erupt, the results would be devastating. Of course, here they're referring to a super-eruption. It has erupted 3 times in the past 3 million years, which has led some people to wonder whether we should be worried about another eruption in the future. But if the eruption took place tomorrow and you lived in North America, there would be virtually nothing you could do to prepare. While Yellowstone has a low population, a density of 0.2 people per square mile, the number of those living in the area near the greater Yellowstone ecosystem has in recent years increased. From 1990 to 2020, the number grew nearly 50% in those 30 years, with that trend continuing. Luckily for those people, in geological terms, near future can mean hundreds to thousands of years away. If Yellowstone does erupt, there is unlikely to be any significant lava flow, because before lava becomes lava, it's known as something called magma. Much of Yellowstone's magma will never turn into lava because the intensity of an eruption would force most of it to shoot into the sky, leaving much of the surrounding area escaping being scorched. But the magma would soon transform into airborne ash particles, which are small, scorching pieces of jagged rock. This alone would affect more or less the whole of the United States and Canada, as it has in the past. And more tragically, tens of millions of people within a 620-mile radius, that's about 1,000 kilometers, would, of course, lose their lives because of this. Once breathed in, the ash would form a cement-like mixture in the lungs, causing suffocation, much as what happened in Pompeii with Vesuvius. Now, outside buildings would collapse as a result of the ash. Just 30 centimeters, which is only 12 inches of ash, is enough to cave in roofs. Experts say that even if you were outside this 620-mile range, you would still be in trouble. As far away as the east coast of the United States, around a centimeter of ash would have fallen, an amount still dangerous to human lungs and also, of course, to crops. Now, some ash would even travel to Europe, while the rest of the world would experience extreme weather changes. It's what's called a volcanic winter. The global temperature would drop around 10 degrees centigrade. That's huge. And this decrease could last as long as 10 years. The ash would also affect crops, water supplies, and almost everything else we rely on. Now, organizations like NASA have been working on solutions to prevent such a devastating event. One thing they have looked at is increasing the amount of water within the volcano in order to extract the heat day by day, reducing the risk of eruption. We're talking about what was happening in Long Valley Caldera as well, the supervolcano of California, which is about 600 miles away from Yellowstone to the west, on the west coast, and that has a geothermal plant there as well. Now, yet in practical terms, this initiative is unlikely to gain the backing of any political body and the policy and financial aid required. One plan NASA does have that could attract a government support involves drilling a 10-kilometer hole that's 6 miles down into Yellowstone and pumping water into it at a high pressure. Of course, we know that the roof of the magma chamber in Yellowstone, in the caldera, is only 3 to 5 miles down. So they would, of course, that would mean perhaps drilling into the roof of the magma chamber. I mean, does that sound feasible to you? You could, by doing that, spur an eruption, what you're trying to mitigate. Now, anyway, this could circulate the water, they said, and return it to an estimated temperature of 350 degrees Celsius, that's 662 degrees Fahrenheit, and slowly, day by day, extracting heat from the volcano. Estimates suggest that such a project would come at a cost of $3.5 billion, but would generate electric power at competitive prices, and so comes with an enticing catch which could convince politicians to make the investment. And this is according to Express UK, Joel Day. And let's remember that the geologist in charge of Yellowstone is Dr. Michael Poland, and he says as long as he's in charge of Yellowstone, a supervolcano, he is not going to let anyone touch the supervolcano with anything like that, because you could, of course, trigger an eruption by drilling into the roof of the magma chamber. As we know, the magma chambers of supervolcanoes are huge, and the roofs are very, very volatile. Even a small, we know that Yellowstone volcano has a lake over it, over about a quarter of the lake, and a stiff breeze over the water's surface can cause a slight earthquake on the roof of the magma chamber, from one of the articles that the Yellowstone Chronicles told us about a year or so ago. So it's very, very sensitive. Yellowstone is active, it has daily earthquakes, and it's really inflating in the area of the northeast of Wyoming towards Hebgen Lake. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.